Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be reviewing Samurai Riot for the Nintendo Switch. Now this game is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up that just released on June 1st of 2022 and currently sells on the Nintendo Switch eShop for $9.90. The game is published by Wacko Factory and it has a download size of 1.3 gigabytes. Now does this samurai-inspired beat-em-up do enough to honor the genre? Well, we'll figure out in today's review. Just remember that if you are liking the content, one of the best ways to support the channel is just to hit that like button. So if we start out with the storyline, you are basically playing as two agents of the current samurai government. All of a sudden, at the end of a regular day of patrol, you are attacked by rioters that are unhappy with the current leader. So you are quickly thrown into action, having to face down this uprising. Now for a beat 'em up, there's actually quite a bit of dialogue in between each level, and there's actually 8 different endings here, so the exact storyline, how it plays out, is really going to depend on different choices you make throughout the game. Now I haven't unlocked all 8 endings, however after a couple of playthroughs, the main plot twists here are always going to depend on whether you side with the government or you side with the populace, which will ultimately affect the way you will interact with the different characters and the different dialogues you'll get. Now, although the plot at certain turning points is a little bit convoluted, overall for a beat-em-up game, it does a pretty good job of keeping you interested till the end of a playthrough. And for those completionists out there trying to get all 8 endings, at least it'll guarantee a huge replayability. Ultimately, this won't be winning any writing awards, but it does its job. Now if we jump into the gameplay. Now this game is actually broken up into 7 different levels, playable in solo or in co-op mode. Now, although the order of the levels will actually change depending on the choices you make, it is nonetheless the same 7 levels. Now, overall, the levels are pretty well constructed and designed, and they will take about 10 to 15 minutes to complete, giving a full playthrough of the game slightly over the 1 hour mark. Now, you have the choice between 2 playable characters. A female character named Tsukane, who is more like a quick-hitting, agile ninja type, or a male character named Tsurumaru, who is more your standard samurai type. Now, each one of these 2 characters will have a different set of standard abilities, as well as a couple of special attacks. The female character's main gimmick is that she has a pet fox that you can use in a variety of ways, while the male character, on the other hand, uses grenades as his gimmick. I was actually surprised how differently both characters played out, with the female character really having a ton more mobility, but weaker hits, while the male character has lesser mobility, but definitely hits a lot stronger. Now, after selecting your initial character, you also have to choose which school they're associated with. The school will basically affect your abilities or stats in a special way. One school gives you more health, another one makes your special meter charge quicker, even a third gives your attack the ability to guard break from time to time. Now, when you initially load in, you'll have a choice of 4 schools. All the other schools have to be unlocked through in-game currency, which you'll get through a normal playthrough. Once again, this is a nice added feature for completionists, which will guarantee you, I would say, at least 3 or 4 playthroughs before you're able to unlock everything. Your last choice before starting up a game will also be to choose one of 4 difficulty levels. Now, I managed to finish the game both on normal and hard difficulty, but I would definitely recommend that if you're new to the genre or just not very well versed in beat-em-ups, definitely start at normal or easy. Now, you do have a finite number of lives and continues to finish the game, so it's important to note that if you run out, you could have to start from the beginning. However, I would not be too worried because at least at the normal level, the game is pretty generous in extra lives and health refills. Now, overall, for the majority of the gameplay, this is very standard for a beat-em-up. You have 2 swords at the top of your screen, one representing your health, the other one your special meter. The special meter is charged when you hit enemies. The bigger the combo, the faster the meter will charge. Now, this meter can actually be charged 3 times, with each time the sword turning a darker shade of red. Now, lastly, for the gameplay section, you'll be facing down a variety of enemies. However, most enemies are only color swaps based on earlier models that do get extra life and different attack patterns. Overall, there are about 7 different categories of enemies throughout the game, and figuring out which tactics work on what category of enemy should be your main focus early on. Now, my overall thoughts on the gameplay here is that rather than the same 7 levels over, I would have rather preferred at least 1 or 2 original levels depending on your choices. However, at least changing up the order in which they're presented does offer a tiny bit of variety. However, given the low variety of enemies, it will lead to some repetitiveness, And although the game offers a huge potential for replayability, I don't think most people will do more than 1 or 2 playthroughs. It is important to note, however, that there is a possibility for a different final boss depending on your choices. So at least that, for many people, will motivate at least a second playthrough. So the general gameplay here was very decent, it just didn't blow me away. Now we move on to the controls. I have to say that the combat system here is deeper than I first thought when I started up the game. And there's actually quite a decent amount of variety of combos and different tactics to use throughout the gameplay. As for the basic controls, first of all, you do have the choice between the D-pad or the left joystick to move around your character. Now Y will generally correspond to either a sword swing or a punch depending on the character, and X will correspond to kicks. Holding down Y for a few seconds will initiate a charge attack for either character, and holding down X for a few seconds will initiate the special attack of each character. For the samurai, it will be throwing a grenade. For the female character, it will be launching her fox. There are also specialized air attacks while jumping by holding down the down direction and hitting Y or X. You can also either block or dodge depending on the character with the R trigger, and initiate a grab with the L trigger. Now, each character has a couple of what's called furies that can be initiated using the special meter that we referred to earlier. Hitting Y and B at the same time will initiate a flurry of attacks and will drain 1 meter. Hitting X and A will rather initiate a screen clearing attack and will use up 2 bars. Now, as I pointed to earlier, I was actually quite amazed of how many different combos can be pulled off and how the different attacks can actually be chained together. You can easily initiate a combo with a couple of light attacks, jump in the air, follow up with an air attack, and then land and finish it up with some heavies. And that's just one of the many combinations that are possible. The controls are also very responsive, and I didn't have any issues through any one of my playthroughs. The only thing I would have changed is I would have preferred to be able to use our special ability with the A button rather than having to charge the X, since the A button on its own is underutilized. But it's only a minor gripe, and once you get used to this control scheme, it actually works very well. Now we move on to the graphics and sound. Now, first of all, the base art style that they used for the game I very much enjoyed. It does a really good job on delivering on the feeling of an old school samurai movie with a little bit of modernity thrown in. The backgrounds for the most part are interesting and vibrant, and although there aren't a huge variety of enemy types, you can definitely tell the difference very quickly. The boss designs also for the most part are, once again, very interesting. Now, however, although I liked the base art style, what I did find a little bit clunky was the animation. Especially the walking animation on the 2 main characters. I mean, I get it that these characters want to remain in their fighting stance, but no one would walk their way through 7 levels of gameplay without ever breaking stride. Now, at least the run animation is a little bit better, but that walking animation at first was really putting me off. And I would say that is a recurring event throughout the game. Although there is nothing wrong with the actual FPS, the animation itself does feel a little clunky. So this is really beautiful design with lackluster animation. Now if we move on to the sound. Now the main music track throughout the game is actually quite interesting. It's like a funky version of an actual song that you would hear once again in an old school samurai movie. And the bass track actually works really well, like I said, giving an overall funky vibe to the gameplay. The only issue is there isn't enough variety, and the actual track loop is a little bit too short. And after I would say an hour of gameplay, once again, it starts getting repetitive. And with just a couple of extra tracks to really give us some variety, this could have been an amazing soundtrack. The sound effects, however, here are very fitting and they don't overpower the soundtrack, something I love to hear. So overall, on the sound design package, we have a great basic soundtrack, just not enough variety. So now for the verdict. And if this is the first time you're watching one of my reviews, just to let you know, my full review scale is available down below in the description of the video. And in the case of Samurai Riot on the Nintendo Switch, I'm going to be giving the game a 7.5, putting it on the high end of a good game. Now overall, a lot of the basics of a really good fighting game are there. You've got a really solid and functional control system. You have a combat system that is easy to understand for newcomers to the genre, yet at the same time offers some nice advanced options for veterans. The game also tries to give you a decent amount of motivation for replayability. Where it does stumble slightly, however, is in the rigidity of its animations. The lack of any extra playable characters, a third or fourth unlockable character would have really helped a lot, and the slight lack of diversity in its levels and enemies. The good news, however, they're only selling this game for $9.90. And at that price, although this won't become a top 10 beat 'em up game, it's offering a very nice package. But now the decision is all up to you. And let me know in the comments down below if you're going to be picking up Samurai Riot, or if you just agree with this review. And don't forget, on the way out, that if you did like the content, consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel if you aren't already, and clicking that notification bell so you know when all my future content comes out. And as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.